Hi everybody, Levi Clay here. I know it's been a while since I've uploaded, been extremely busy, but I'm looking forward to getting back to it for you guys. So this time I am going to do something slightly different. I'm going to give you a top 5 list because I thought that might be quite fun. Now, disclaimer, this is not an objective list by any stretch of the imagination, as you will see. This is my opinion and I'm very interested in your opinion too. So if you have any comments, or if you disagree with anything, that comment box is right there for you. So what I'm going to be doing today is bringing you a top 5 list of the 5 prog bands that you've probably not heard. Now, okay, that's a bit of a clickbaity title because I'm sure many of you will have heard these bands, but give it a chance. These are bands that, especially as we get towards the 2 and 1 spot, if you're into the prog genre, these are bands that if you've not heard, you definitely should go out and listen to. And if you have heard them, then good for you. Again, please do share with me some of your favourite unknown prog bands in the comments below. The other tricky aspect of this is, well, what's prog? That's a difficult subject in itself, right? So for the sake of this video, I have avoided doing anything that is too down the fusion realm. Prog just means progressive, right? Pushing boundaries, doing things that aren't expected. So to me, that's extended song structures, long instrumental sections, time signature changes, extended harmony. It could be anything, fantasy, lyrical themes, whatever. Prog is a personal thing, and some people would say bands like Muse are prog, and others would argue not. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. There's no truth either way. But ultimately, if you like the sound of prog, then this list might be for you. So let's jump into it. Let's start with
Number 5.
Okay, so number 5 is going to probably be the hardest on this list, just purely because I would be amazed if everybody out there isn't already familiar with the band Cynic. Cynic. If you're unfamiliar with Cynic, maybe you're an old prog fan that's listened to bands like Rush and Genesis and Yes, etc. You still love prog, but you're looking for bands to get into. Cynic are a fantastic band led by Paul Masvidal. He has recording credits with Death. He played on Death's Human album, but his main project has always been Cynic. Cynic have been going since 1987, actually, a very long time. And Paul's style it's progressive. There's kind of like stoner elements to it. It's very fantasy and sci-fi sounding. He has wonderful chord voicings. He has a unique approach to combining chordal work with lead guitar and using clean and overdriven guitars. He just has a fantastic sound, and I would highly recommend that you check out 2008's Traced in Air. It's a fabulous record. Can still put it on any day of the week and still absolutely love that one. Of course, they have many other albums. They're kind of still going. Lots of drama kicking around with them a few years ago, but hopefully we'll get more Cynic in the future. As I say, plenty of albums to check out. Paul Masvidal's playing is fantastic. I'm sure I said that earlier, but that is genuinely how I feel about it. So go and give Traced in Air a spin and see what you think about that one. As I say, Cynic, quite a big name on the prog scene, so the modern progressive rock and metal fans are probably very familiar with Cynic. Don't worry, hopefully there'll be some other stuff on this list for you, but if you are unfamiliar, go and check Cynic out right now, because I'm going to talk about
Number 4.
So for my number 4, again, this is one that kind of gets into that pointless mentality. Is this an artist or a band that everybody is familiar with? I would assume so, just purely because they're an artist that I listen to a fair amount, and my friends all listen to a fair amount. But actually, in the grand scheme of things, I think it would be fair to say that David Maxim Micic, have I butchered the pronunciation? Probably. Is an artist that on the grand stage is probably relatively unknown. I wanted to include a modern progressive metal kind of player, and there were a ton of guys that I could have talked about here. Could have talked about Monuments or Tesseract or Heavy Metal Ninjas or Intervals. I was really considering throwing in Intervals in here, Aaron Marshall's band. Lots and lots of bands in that modern scene that all have that kind of gent influence in there. And for me, David is probably I wouldn't necessarily say the best. I mean, he is a wonderful, wonderful player. I'd probably say he's the lesser known of everybody on that scene. And that's a shame because he is an artist of the truest form. He gives the word artist the credit that it is due. It's well worth going and checking some of his music out on Bandcamp or anywhere that you can find it. So he records under the name Bilo or Bilo, Bilo, and he has several albums out, many albums actually. He's been recording since 2011. There's the Bilo 1, 2, and 3 albums. There's also Eco, The Stock Challenge, and there is a new album. And why is his name escaping me? You can see it on screen right now. Again, his style is, I guess you could describe it as incredibly laid back. I'm not a stoner myself, but when I listen to David's music, it strikes me as the kind of music that it would be wonderful to get really high and just listen to this music. You would go on a wonderful journey doing so. I'm not recommending, but I am saying his music is wonderful, and that's what it evokes for me. Feelings of relaxation and just close your eyes, lay back, and let the music take you away. I'm particularly fond of the first Bilo recording. Obviously, it was the first one I heard back in 2011. There's an incredible guitar solo from Jakub Zajtecki on that album that just blows me away still every single time I hear it. So, David Maxim Micic, the Croatian guitar wizard. Go and check him out. He is fabulous. Let's move on to
Number 3.
So here we have a guitar player of the old guard, someone that's been on the scene for a very, very long time. Originally playing guitar with Watchtower, the first band that you might call math metal. Apparently that's a genre. Went on to do a lot of solo recordings, also toured with Marty Friedman for a while. Of course, that guitar player is Ron Jarzombek, friend of the channel. How's it going, Ron? Ron is one of my biggest influences in my early years playing rock, metal, and getting into the progressive thing, because he has a very unique sound. All you need to do is dig into his earlier bands like Spastic Inc. with his brother, Bobby Jarzombek, who of course now plays with Rob Halford. Absolutely mental guitar player, just insane. I'm really fond of his solo albums. His second solo album, Solitary Speaking of Theoretical Confinement, is a really kind of fun, I don't want to say avant-garde, it's definitely an arty album. It's pushing not the boundaries of composition, but putting compositional restrictions on himself to increase his creativity and see, it's almost like they're composing exercises. And to me, that's fun because you're hearing the creativity of someone when they're in a limited space like that. But what Ron went on to do is explored the 12-tone system of music and actually invented his own system of 12-tone music, his own atonal method, his 12-tone tone row clock system. Fascinating, well worth looking into. And it was something I toyed around with for quite a lot of time when I was younger. Still absolutely love the sound, and he has pushed it to its limits with his band Blotted Science, who were formed in 2007. So Blotted Science, a band well worth checking out. They only actually have 2 albums, 1 album and 1 EP. You've got The Machinations of Dementia, which was 2007's record, and 2011's Animation of Entomology. Very crazy words, right? So worth checking out either, but when it comes to Animation of Entomology, each one of the songs on that was composed to follow visual cues. So he was essentially writing 12-tone music to accompany films. And when you dig into these, you will find, wonderful clips of essentially Ron and his band playing progressive metal, but syncing up with, for example, scenes from King Kong. Real cool. And because of the 12-tone nature, it results in it's as progressive as it gets, right? It's unpredictable. You never quite feel at home or comfortable because you're not operating within a traditional Western tertian harmony system. So, absolutely mind-bending stuff when you try to analyze it. And Ron has got some great instructional packages out as well, so it's worth checking out those. As I say, Ron, a friend of the channel, hopefully we'll have him on for a Mandates with Guitar Greats at some point soon. We've been talking about it. I would love to give Ron as much exposure as possible because He deserves all the attention he can get. He's genuinely done some incredibly interesting things with guitar and music and his exploration of music theory. So that is my number 3, Ron Jarzombek of Blotted Science. Let's move on to...
Number 2.
Oh, we're getting into the scary territory now. Who's going to get number 2? Who's going to get number 1? Number 2 is going to go to a Swedish band by the name of ACT. That's ACT. Swedish band, guitar player Ola Andersson. What can I say about ACT? They are one of progressive rock's hidden gems. They don't nearly have the credit that they deserve. My wife is quite fond of them and has been for the last couple of months because I've been playing a lot of ACT in the house and transcribing bits. And she pulled me aside at one point and said, I don't understand how this band aren't massive. They should be huge. She said they should be writing music for Disney films. And some of you might take that as a massive compliment and some of you might take that as a big insult. But what you can take from that is they write catchy hooks. And that's something that is often lost, especially in the progressive scene. ACT have this fabulous kind of ABBA meets Dream Theater thing going on. Extremely fun, playful instrumental sections, lead vocals and harmonies that they sound nothing but, I don't want to say cheesy, fun. When you listen to ACT, nothing is too serious. On their last album, Circus Pandemonium, they're self-referential. There's a line in the first song of "Let's do a middle section. The band keeps playing to give you an erection." Like it's breaking the musical fourth wall. I giggle every time I hear it, even though the album has some darker themes. It's playful, it's fun, the compositional style is incredibly unique. They are an incredible band. As I say, they've been on the scene since '95. You've got Today's Report, Imaginary Friends, is that an album name? The album I'm going to recommend is 2001's Last Epic. In fact, that album is so good, ACT could have only released that album and they would still make it to the number 2 spot on this list. It's a fabulous... I keep saying fabulous on this one, but it really is. It is a fabulous concept album. It has one of the best choruses you will ever hear. It's a perfect example of a chord progression and an arrangement of how to arrange this chord progression. It is, I'm going to say it again, perfect. Well worth listening to. It's called The Effect. So brilliant song by a brilliant band, and they have some great live videos, so they're worth checking out. So, number 2 spot, ACT. Awesome band. But let's move on to that number 1 spot. So,
Number 1.
And in number 1, we have, it will come as no surprise to any of my followers, long-term followers, number 1 spot will go to Thank You Scientist. Thank You Scientist have been on the scene only since 2009, which isn't very long at all. The guitar player and sitar player, shamisen player, producer, does a bit of everything, plays a lot of instruments actually, fretless guitar, Tom Monder. So 2009, and they've got 3 records. You've got The Perils of Time Travel, which is an EP, Maps of Non-Existent Places, and Stranger Heads Prevail. Thank You Scientists are very different to everyone else on this list because they have an extremely unique sound coming from the instrumentation in the band. The band consists of a drummer, a guitar player, a bass player, a vocalist, a violin player, a saxophone player, and a trumpet player. And they're often drawing in other instruments on the recordings, something like 32 instruments on the last album or something to that effect. And because of that, Tom, when he's writing arrangements for the band, has to arrange things in a different way to make things work for that sort of instrumentation. And he's got it down to a fine tee. They write excellent songs, and Sal, their singer, has a very unique kind of high tenor voice. And it just somehow works. It's excellent. He doesn't need to go low or growl at all. He's got a pleasing voice. Kind of in that Coheed and Cambria area, but not quite Claudio Sanchez style. If you want to dig into this band, you know, they are a big influence on me. In fact, that guitar there, fretless guitar there, that was Tom's guitar. That was used on Maps of Non-Existent Places to record In the Company of Worms. He's got a new fretless now, so I snapped that one up given the chance. Huge influence on me. Anyone that's seen the Levi Clay cartoon logo icon will probably now notice that if you look at that, I'm wearing a Thank You Scientist t-shirt in that. They're that big of an influence on me. When I had that cartoon drawn up, I said to the guy, I would like to be wearing a Thank You Scientist t-shirt, please. And he did that. So their last album, Stranger Heads Prevail, somehow is even better than Maps of Non-Existent Places. Really worth checking out. They are currently, again, Tom being a friend of the channel, and we're hopefully going to do a video promoting this. They are currently about to embark on their first European tour. So I'll be driving halfway across the country to hang out with those guys again and see some incredible music be played by a band that has no business being as good as they are, but they really are as good as they are. And that's why they get my number one spot, because, you know, I'm not going to say they're the best progressive band of all time, because there are other bands that I listen to more of. For example, Symphony X. You know, you don't have to hide the fact that Symphony X are a huge influence on me, or the Dixie Dregs, or things like that. I'm not saying Thank You Scientist are better than the Dixie Dregs, but when you talk about progressive rock or metal bands that you probably haven't heard and that you must listen to, Thank You Scientist have to top that list every single time, because they're new. They don't have a massive following. They're not small, they are picking up, but they deserve to have more followers because they write excellent songs. Just take a listen to An Amateur Arsonist's Handbook, or The Amateur Arsonist's Handbook. Isn't it a shame the modern way we listen to music on iTunes or on iPods or on our phones, and we don't take in the song names like you used to 15 years ago? So just take a listen to Stranger Heads Prevail, the album. Tons of great songs on there. Mr. Invisible, Blue-O-Matic. I'm genuinely sure if you love prog, you are going to love this band. So there we have it, my top 5 prog bands that you probably haven't heard and you need to check out. Have you heard of all of these bands? Are there new bands on there that you have now checked out and enjoy? Are there other bands that you feel should have made this list but didn't? I would be, as I say, interested to hear them, so please do drop them in the comments. They may just be bands that I didn't put on the list because of other bands that I did put on this list. I can assure you I'm staring at a list now, and there's a bunch of names on there that I wanted to put in the list, but if I did a top 10, they would have made it, but not top 5. But who knows? Maybe you're going to suggest some prog bands that I haven't heard. Maybe you're going to introduce me to my new favourite band. That's how these things happen sometimes. There was a time when I was introduced to Thank You Scientist. There was a time when I was introduced to ACT, for example. So if you do have a great prog band that you think I should check out, please do let me know. And of course, I want to thank you for your care, attention, and support. In fact, I'm going to click over here to this list. These awesome people here, these are my patrons over on patreon.com. These guys all support me at a $10 tier, and they help to make this channel stay alive. So thank you so much for all of your support, guys. Again, it really does help to make the channel be better. If you would like to join us over on Patreon, you can do so for as little as $1, and it gets you access to our private patron only Facebook group. Lots of cool fun things going on in there. If you would like to find out more, of course you don't have to, but if you would like to, you can click this button up here. You can also subscribe to this channel, which is a great way to support me, by clicking this button down here, and you can watch 2 more of my videos here, somewhere, and here. As always, thank you so much for the support, guys. It really does mean the world. Keep the suggestions coming in for more videos, and I'll see you for another one soon. Laters.